Americans of every race and color have worked to build a nation of widening opportunities. Now, our generation of Americans has been called on to continue the unending search for justice within our own borders.
Speak up! Speak up!
We believe that all men are created equal, yet many are denied equal treatment.
My name is Jeffrey Fletcher. I am the Executive Director of the Ruby and Calvin Fletcher African American History Museum. It was a challenge, to say the least. We had to repurpose, we had to rewire. Ruby and Calvin Fletcher, my parents, were the motivating factors behind this whole museum. My mom, who was a child who grew up in Camden, South Carolina during the 1930s, she decided that she had enough of living in Jim Crow South and dealing with the segregation, discrimination, and migrated to the Northeast. Was the main force behind where we are today. And as a child, what she did was she collected a lot of objects, a lot of artifacts. She continued to collect, and as she was raising her family. One thing I hope people will take away from this museum is to understand and open up their minds that this history, these artifacts, this museum is a place where African American history is preserved. But the thing that I want people to understand that it plays a big part in breaking down the stereotypes, the bias, and all of the negativity that has been associated with African Americans from the first time they set foot in 1619, Virginia, to up to this point. I'm trying to break down stereotypes, I'm trying to break down bias. We tend to forget where we came from. This museum puts everything in perspective, but it also brings you back to reality of what happened in America 300-400 years ago. This history is not going to hurt you. And one of the things that I really drive home, and my staff drives home, is we are not wanting anybody to feel shamed. I don't want anybody to come through the museum feeling as though they're going to be persecuted. We actually do tours where we take people through the museum so that if there are any questions, they can be answered right then and there. And this is not a place where you need to be afraid to ask a stupid question, because there is no stupid questions here. This is the place to do that. Sometimes I have to sit and reflect on the journey that this has been on. I came from bringing things out of my trunk of my Jeep, just lugging things early hours of the morning, and speaking to people and hoping people would want to open their doors, hoping schools would open their doors, hoping civic organizations would open their doors, and even sometimes African American or urban communities would embrace this. It's a little emotional for me because it's been a long journey, not only for me, my mother, other people, African Americans, and we gotta support each other, and we gotta make sure that we don't let history repeat itself. I think my mother and father would be proud of what they see here, but I think they would walk a little cautiously, because you have to remember, they came up through a period of time where my mom especially, have seen houses burned, people incarcerated, her own father incarcerated for 30 days for not making the oldest children work the fields because they lived on a sharecropper's farm, which was one of the reasons why she migrated to the north, because she didn't want to live like that anymore. My mom and dad would walk very cautiously because it has a lot to do with trust of where they came from. But they would be proud of what was going on here today.